Breakfast in the Ruins by Michael Moorcock. In the early 70s, some SF writers were pushing the envelope, experimenting with style, format, and exploring gender roles and politics. Two prominent examples of this trend are Dahlgren by Samuel R. Delany and Breakfast in the Ruins by Michael Moorcock. The novel is from 1971. I read the Avon Science Fiction edition, published in 1980. Like Philip K. Dick's Valis, this novel is not SF, strictly speaking, but it is an interesting offering by an author who was so identified with the genre that his work could not be effectively marketed as anything but SF. The first thing I noticed was that the protagonist has the same name as the main character in Moorcock's Behold the Man. Behold the Man was the first novel I reviewed for this channel a year ago on August 20th, 2025. What was Moorcock's intent in using the name Carl Glogauer again? In Behold the Man, Carl, a troubled homosexual, journeys back in time and becomes the historical Jesus, crucified by Roman authorities. In Breakfast in the Ruins, Carl is again a conflicted homosexual, having his first same-sex encounter with a Nigerian man who picks him up in a park. Over the course of their weekend together in a hotel, Carl flashes to several different lifetimes, all involving man's inhumanity to man. Out of curiosity, I looked up the literal meaning of the name Carl Glogauer to see if Moorcock had hidden any intentions there. Carl means free man, and Glogauer simply means one from the city of Glogau in Poland. Let's speculate about this for a moment. In the first book, Carl becomes the savior who dies for the sins of the world. In the second, Carl literally becomes the many transgressors who need to be saved from their own cruelty to one another. Perhaps Moorcock is building the story around Christ's claim that he is the vine and humanity the branches. All are basically one vast organism. Homosexuality may have been included to illustrate that the gay members of society are no greater or lesser sinners than anyone. Such a message was a bit of a hard sell in the mainstream of 1971. I know because I was there, and I remember the negative attitude against homosexuality. I knew closeted gay men who pretended to hate homosexuals. I still know a few of those. In 1971, there were no openly gay characters on television. Obviously flamboyant, perhaps, but none openly admitted homosexuality. I found the book interesting because of its skillful use of well-known historical events, illustrating just how fickle and wicked we are to one another, regardless of religion, nationality, or political affiliation. Each chapter begins with an actual news article relating some historical event. Then, as he interacts with his Nigerian lover, Carl sort of tunes in to another version of himself in another space and time. Toward the end of the book, Carl finds himself as one of the soldiers on a killing spree in the Vietnamese village of My Lai. Each chapter ends with a section titled, "What Would You Do?" In these passages, a difficult moral conundrum is described, and the reader is asked to decide how it should be resolved. The novel structure is experimental. Each chapter is a bit like a Twilight Zone episode. There were many in that old TV series where people unexpectedly found themselves on the scene of some historic tragedy. So, what are we to make of all of this? I'm not sure. I enjoyed the novel for the most part. Some of the historical scenes Moorcock paints in a vivid and emotionally engaging manner. Less engaging for me was the interaction between Glowgower and his Nigerian friend. Not that I'm opposed in any way to depictions of homosexuality in fiction, it's just those scenes were much more cryptic, and I was never certain if I was getting the point of what was being said and done. I felt the same way for the most part when I tackled Samuel R. Delaney's hefty experimental novel, Dahlgren. I suppose these writers did a service to the marginalized and mistreated gay community. Their novels encourage readers to think of homosexuality as a fact of life. I'm sure a lot of secretly gay men and women were encouraged by the fact that people like themselves were showing up in mass market paperback novels. Breakfast in the Ruins by Michael Moorcock, an interesting experimental novel from 1971. I enjoyed reading it, but I hesitate to give it a blanket recommendation because it could easily be disappointing to fans who are expecting actual science fiction. Then, too, because I do not fully understand the book, I imagine others might easily struggle with it as much as I did. If it sounds like something you'd appreciate, check it out. Thank you for listening. If you like what you're finding here, please hit the like button, subscribe, comment, and share. Thanks.